Welcome to In Your Community. I am your host, Trevor Renner, and on this week's episode, we take the show on the road to the Mutt Strut, the 9th annual Dearborn event for all the furry friends in our community. And later on in the show, we talk with Mr. Serge Danielson Francois, the president of the Catholic Librarian Association, all this week on In Your Community. I'm Trevor Renner here at the 9th annual 2014 Dearborn Mutt Strut. We're out here on the Midway, and there's so many cool things to do out here. We have the market in Dearborn, the dry cleaning, Vigue, Michigan, plenty of pet stores for your pets, a pet photo booth down here, Camp Canine. All these great places are all in the Midway, and we're going to go down to the other end of the Midway for just a second. Costco's also here. We've got a lot of great places representing Dearborn businesses out here on the Midway. And down here we have more pet stores, more great things to do. A ton of dogs are out here. It's really a great event, and they have volunteering your pets. Dog jumping is over there. I know I got wet from that earlier. They have volunteer your pet. Several great things that you and your pet can get involved in. We're here with Cheryl Good, one of the vets that have been in Dearborn for 26 years, Dr. Good. Oh my gosh. What does an event like this mean to you in Dearborn, your hometown?
Well, it's not my hometown. It's my hometown of my business, yes, for sure. But this is one of the best events because we get to involve the public, and it's not just for Dearborn. We have people that come from all over to celebrate our animals, to celebrate the dogs, and even the cats. We have our dogs strutting for the cats and all the animals that need homes. So this has just been one of the best events.
All right, who's this guy we have down here?
This is Roscoe. Roscoe was actually adopted over 10 years ago at the shelter, but here he is, almost 11 years old, and we pulled him through.
I know your office always has a lot to do with the adoption process and helping out with the shelter and adopting. What does an event like this mean for that? I mean, I know they have the adoption tent set up over there.
Right.
Hopefully find some good owners.
Yeah, and a lot of people that come here already have pets, but there are some I've seen without.
Okay.
So, and that they're looking for animals. So this does great for the adoptions, and just great to get awareness out to the public.
Great to find them good homes, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Good. Have you guys been having a good time with all the dogs?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. What kind of dogs have you seen?
Boy dogs.
Boy dogs? Okay. Is this your guys' dog right here? Awesome. Can we get a picture of that? Awesome. That's your guy's dog right there. What's his name?
Desmond.
Desmond? Okay. Mom, have you been having a great time out here?
Absolutely. It's a great time for the kids.
Awesome. Have you guys done any events with the dog? Anything?
Yeah.
We've watched a lot of events with the dogs. Awesome. Yes.
Well, I mean, 3 boys is probably a handful, right? I'm here with Sandy Bolton, the PR rep at the Dearborn Animal Shelter, Friends of the Dearborn Animal Shelter, actually. So how has such a great event like this helped Dearborn?
Well, terrific question. Thank you, Trevor, for inviting us to share with everyone that will be catching this little video footage, our friends at Divine Child and anyone in the community watching. It's a terrific day. Mutt Strut and Pet Expo is one of the feature events for the Dearborn Animal Shelter as a fundraiser to care for the animals. And for Dearborn, it's a terrific way to showcase all the things that are going on here in Dearborn. There's lots of community business members that are out here. There are civic groups out here, of course, and the City of Dearborn Parks and Rec Department helps us put this event on each year. And so there are many people, not only from Dearborn, there are several thousand people that will be here today throughout the whole day enjoying festivities. But it's a terrific way for people to see what a friendly place Dearborn is, and of course a terrific way to showcase our companion animals.
All right, thank you so much. Once again, Sandy Bolton, the Director of PR at the Friends of the Dearborn Animal Shelter. I'm Trevor Renner here at the 9th Annual Mutt Strut, and we ran into Councilman Dave Bazzi. Yeah. So, Councilman Bazzi, who are your dogs you have here with you?
Well, this is Roxy. Roxy was a rescue dog. She's 4. And that's Maisie and Reese, and that's my lovely wife, Sherry.
Excellent. Okay, with such a great event like this, how important is it that council keeps funding in the Parks and Rec Department?
Well, I think part of our real responsibility, and you just heard me talking to Mark Guido, and we were talking about the budget, is to make sure that as a team, both administrative and the council, that we're doing what's important to maintain the services that the citizens of the city have enjoyed. I mean, and there are little things like you saw me taking a picture of a broken bottle and some debris, and it's attention to detail. And it doesn't take a lot of money to do attention to detail, and I think that's where we have to get to in the city here, is the attention to detail to make sure that people understand that Dearborn is going to continue to be a thriving community for a long time. We have to have people feel like they want to be part of a winning attitude. Okay. It's important to me. I love the city. It's important.
Okay, so what message is this sending? This is such a great event like this, sending to people who aren't even from Dearborn that brought their pets here.
Well, I think it sends a message that Dearborn is a great place to live, that Dearborn is a community that values not only human contact but pet contact as well. And I think that when people look around here, we want them to say, hey, look, Dearborn's open for business, it's open for families, it's open for people wanting to come and be here and be part of the community.
All right, thank you so much, Councilman Bazey.
I want to announce our ribbon cutters. I see our friend Councilman Dave Bazey has joined us. We would love to have you come up and join us to cut the ribbon. And our very, very, very special guest of the day, who is our spokespup. You've seen her picture on posters and flyers and brochures. That would be Lucky Lucy Valentine. Here she is in person. And she's sniffing Dave's dogs. She is joined by her parents, Jamie Charleston and Dustin Kress. Whenever you are ready. And let's have some music, Anna. Woohoo! No struggles.
That pretty much wraps it up out here at the Dearborn Mud Strut. And we had such a great time out at the Mud Strut. Up next, we have our interview with Mr. Serge Danielson Francois, who's the president of the Michigan Association of Catholic Librarians and the head librarian at Divine Child High School. Up next on In Your Community. I'm here with Mr. DF, the librarian at Divine Child High School, and he's also president of the Michigan chapter of the Catholic Librarians. So, Mr. DF, why don't you go ahead and tell us about the organization that you're president of?
So, a long time ago, a group of librarians got together and decided that they should be taking care of matters that relate to Catholic libraries. The issue, of course, over time is that number dwindled from a couple hundred people to a couple dozen people to now a small group of half a dozen. And the real question that we have is, what role do librarians play in Catholic libraries today? We don't check out books. Most of you don't read. We do answer questions about information literacy. That is, where should you find authoritative, current, reliable information? And what should you do with that information? When does information become knowledge?
Okay, speaking of information, how have you helped the students at Divine Child get ready for this ACT coming up?
We hosted last week a Blitz session Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 o'clock in order to get about 60 Divine Child juniors ready for a test that they are afraid of. And so a lot of what we did is we dealt with their anxiety, and then we gave them a couple strategies for working through a 3-hour exam.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and tell us about your life growing up?
My parents are from Haiti, and I grew up in New York City, 4 blocks from Yankee Stadium, which explains why I'm a lifelong Yankees fan. I'm not hating on the Tigers, but you got to know where you're from, and I'm from the Bronx. I went to a French school. That doesn't happen a lot. And I went to school with a bunch of ambassadors' kids and folks who did not consider the United States to be their primary home. They were just passing through. I then went off to college in Pennsylvania, met my wife, best thing that ever happened to me, and traveled the country. So I'm one of these few Michiganders who has been other places. For instance, Arizona, Texas, Kansas. These are some of the places I've called home.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and tell us about how you've helped in the local community, what organizations you're part of, things like that.
So the number one place that I consider to be a venue for me is my church. I am a member of Christ Episcopal Church, and I play a role there as a member of the vestry. And some of the questions we have are related to what does it mean to be faithful today? What does it mean to be part of a faith community today? And I've been a part of those conversations. When the pews only have 80 people in them, but they were built to hold 500, what does it mean to be church?
Okay, why don't you go ahead and tell us about your job as librarian at DC? I mean, you're not the typical librarian.
I like to think of myself as not a shushing librarian. Most students would say that their interaction with me has little to do with book transactions. I usually am involved in research questions, so if I think of a German class and my role there, it was really to introduce students to a critical question of what is uniquely German. Or if I think of my role in a biology class, I come in and ask students what would it mean to be a mini expert on topics such as anatomy and physiology or genetics. So those are some of the settings where I have been a member of the conversation.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and tell us about the environment that you work in, because I mean, this isn't just your ordinary library that we're in right now, right?
When we designed the space, we had a couple things in mind. It should be hospitable. The one thing that I'm really proud of is that people feel like they're welcome in the library. You can come in just about any time. We open our doors as early as 6. We don't close until 5, and we're open on Saturday. So I measure our success by the number of people in this space, not by the number of books in this space. That's the first thing I'd like to say. The second is we believe that you have stories to share with each other. And that's why we encourage conversation. We don't shush you. We say go ahead and share what's important. And the third is, in terms of resources, we believe that the best resources aren't necessarily the ones on the shelf. You ought to be able to make use of and leverage what you can get off your phone, what you get on your computer, and we'll teach you to tell the good stuff from the bad stuff. That's what we do.
Okay, you're also the journalism teacher here at DC. Why don't you go ahead and tell us about your journalism class?
I'm very proud of my journalists. Some of them, as you know, have ventured away from this building because I've always said there's no news at Divine Child High School, but there is real news in the community, and there's a role for you to be storytellers in the community. Two of my journalists most recently went to the Mutt Strike, and they were able to let people know that we care about people other than ourselves. We're not narcissistic that way. When I read some student papers, it sounds like the most important thing that's happened today or this week has something to do with a 15 through 18-year-old. But I listen to my journalists talk to people who have been involved in community building for years, if not decades, appreciate that story and tell that story. That's why I teach journalism.
Okay, part of our show, we like to ask some of our live audience members questions that they might have for our guest today. So, do you have a question?
Yes. As head of your class at the Lycée Français du Nord, did you ever think that possibly the occupation of a library wasn't all that your potential could offer?
So answering your question, Jacob, the real question I hear is, how are you supposed to live your life? What are you intended to do? What are you meant to do? And when I was in high school your age, I thought I wanted to be a judge initially, until a really good man, Martin Kiefer, who was my history teacher, in class one day, turned his back to the class and said, I can already tell you how many of you would raise your hand if I said who wants to be a teacher. It'd probably be none of you. And in that moment, I was like, yeah, I think I'd want to be a teacher. And I had the only raised hand at the time. He's like, thank you. I get to hand this on to someone else. Let me take you to lunch and talk to you about why I think teaching matters. And he did. And when I got to Swarthmore College, one of the ways I got to repay that debt is I invited him to come and speak to some of my friends and tell them why it is I was pursuing history at Swarthmore, but always thinking that I'd be a teacher someday. So teacher is where I thought I was when I was a college student. And I taught French, Spanish, Latin, moved to the U.S.-Mexico border, taught in Nogales, 5th graders at Catholic school. And I was helping to put a program together for the kids around service. And I said, there's so much knowledge that you need in order to be useful in the world. Who are some of the most knowledgeable people I know? Librarians. So I ended up a librarian by pursuing a circuitous path that was always led by this one question: what are you meant to do? So I think I'm doing what I'm meant to do now.
Thank you so much for watching this week's edition of In Your Community. I'm your host, Trevor Renner, and beside me right now is our editor, David Totten. Thank you so much for watching.